We are, I guess, still in the same theme because on Super Bowl Sunday, a couple of the most eaten foods are fried. Chicken wings are in the top 10.
Don't you wish you didn't like them?
I wish I didn't. They're so tasty and delicious. I love chicken wings. But a new study came out this past week that shed some light on eating fried foods and prostate cancer. And joining us right now is Marion Newhouser. She's a study co-author there at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center with more on exactly how bad this connection is. Welcome to the program, Marion.
Having me. Yes, we did a study of prostate cancer in the Seattle, Washington area, and we found that many of the fried foods that a lot of people love, including French fries, fried chicken, fried fish, donuts, are associated with about a 30 to 37% increased risk of prostate cancer.
That's a really large increase.
It is a rather large increase because most risk factors increase cancer risk by 10%, 15%. So, 30 to 37% is a rather large risk.
So what do you make from that? What does this mean to you after the study has been completed?
Well, this would be an easy way for men to modify their diets. A lot of risk factors for cancer we can't control, such as our family history. If men have had a father, grandfather, brother, or uncle with prostate cancer, that really increases their risk. We can't change a lot of other aspects of our personal makeup, but diet and exercise are things that people can easily modify. Now, the good news about these foods that we examined is if you have them just once in a while, it didn't seem to increase risk. So men who are looking to eat those wings today and those chips today, they'll probably be fine, but we found that men who ate these foods at least one time or more per week, they were the ones that had the increased risk. If you have them once in a while, once every couple weeks, once a month, a few times a year, it won't influence their risk.
And so what about the food? Is it the kind of food that we're frying? Is it the fact that it's saturated in oils? Like, what about that food is the problem?
Those are really good questions. And with this study, we couldn't really tease apart what it was about the foods that was associated with the increased risk, but we can hypothesize a number of things. As you mentioned, the foods are soaked in oil, and then when they are cooked at a very high temperature, they easily become oxidized. And sometimes this extra oxidation can cause cells to undergo DNA damage. And DNA damage is at the heart of all cancers. That's how cancer starts, with a disruption to the normal integrity of the DNA.
There are several cancer-causing chemicals that are created in that high-heat cooking process, right?
That's correct. So it could be some of those chemicals. It could also be a change in the actual muscle meats, which is different than the fat surrounding the fried foods in the frying process. And a number of other studies have shown that meats cooked at very high temperatures can also create some of these harmful chemicals that may be associated with increased cancer risk. And you may have heard about previous studies of barbecued meats and charred meats. Well, this is along the same lines because the meats are cooked at very high temperature.
I can't tell you how much this information bums me out because
some of your favorite things.
I love foods that are flash fried, which typically means the oil is exceptionally hot and it's in there for a shorter period of time. And I used to think that that was a healthier way of going because it's not as drenched in oil when it's flash fried. But now I'm understanding that the high heat
could be part of it.
Component is a big portion of it, right, Marion?
Yes, the high heat may be a component. And so what you might think about what it is that you like about that. Is it the crunch?
Yes.
Is it the taste?
Yes.
What
the saltiness?
Or both?
Yeah, right.
And so when you get that urge, what are some other, crunchy things that could be substituted so that you have that high heat food less often?
So other ways to satisfy that craving.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's correct.
Anthony, our audio guy, spoke out loud and said celery, and
Yes.
I have to agree. Celery does have a great crunch to it. It's a little high in sodium, but it's I love celery,
Mm-hmm.
so that's not a bad. Yeah, but it comes with the wings.
Yeah, eat the celery and not
That's
the
right. It
wings.
often comes with the wings. You just have to hold off on the blue cheese and,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
have just a little bit of that with the celery.
So does this open the door for more study then to kind of look further into some of the nuances that this kind of brings up? Like, what is it? The oil, the heat, the kind of food. Does this open the door for further studies?
It certainly does. And some of the studies that I am particularly involved in involve doing just this. We bring participants into what we call our human nutrition lab, and there we can test very specific foods, you know, cooked in certain ways, prepared in certain ways, and measure biological response in the study participants. So sometimes we call them, you know, the human guinea pig studies.
Right.
But those are the best ways to really determine whether or not a particular food substance cooked in a certain way, presented in a certain way, or just even the food itself has either a beneficial or not so beneficial biological response.
Are there
So
any-
this is kind of the first step in trying to think about where we should go next.
Right.
So are there any is there any thought to like a lifestyle factor where if you're the kind of person who chooses to eat, say, donuts, french fries, etc., once a week versus someone else who may be pursuing a sort of, you know, quote unquote healthier lifestyle and not choosing those kinds of foods because it's part of an overall, you know, exercise routine and other, does that make sense? Have you looked at
Yes.
those factors?
Yes, we have looked at those factors, and one thing that's very common among people who have a lifestyle that is full of these kinds of foods is that very often they're overweight. And so what we did in this study is we statistically controlled for their body mass index, which is a way to measure how overweight someone is. So even when we make that equal, in other words, all weights being equal, the fried foods were still associated with increased risk.
So you did factor that in. That's good to know.
Yes, we did.
Because
Yes.
then someone can't just excuse us and say, well, I live a healthy lifestyle. That doesn't apply to me.
That's right. Yeah.
Were there any surprises in this study? Fried foods that were not associated with an increase, or the percentage of increase, like you mentioned earlier? Any of those things surprising?
Yes, we were a little bit surprised that snack chips were not associated with a large increased risk. So that would include, you know, potato chips, tortilla chips, Cheetos,
Oh,
you know, any of those fried snack foods.
That is
So now that
interesting.
doesn't let everybody off the hook.
Right.
That they can eat those all the time, because there's other aspects of those foods that are not so healthful. So consider those a once-in-a-while food, not something you want to eat every day, but try not to eat it every day.
Right.
Just once in a while.
You know, Marion, when I was writing the story for our website earlier in the week, I was eating beans that I had made at home, but using tortilla chips to eat the beans. And I was like, oh no. But then as I kept reading the study, I'm like, oh yeah.
Good.
Right. Marion Newhouser, the study co-author there at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, and happy Super Bowl Sunday.
Likewise. All right, stick around, everyone.